Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dad Lit Pod.
Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who know that moss always grows on the north side of trees. Tonight I'm joined by Kat Rosenfield. Kat is a culture writer for the Free Press and an author of 6 novels. Her most recent novel, How to Survive in the Woods, is basic instinct, but with bears. And honestly, who wouldn't want to read Basic Instinct with bears? Kat, welcome to the Davlit Pod. I Before the episode, I'll admit to everybody I'm a huge Kat Rosenfield fan, and I appreciate her trying to save theater in Washington, D.C., although it didn't work out.
I did not single-handedly save the Kennedy Center. I'm sorry. I
I
tried.
was so hoping. I was so hoping. And you
And for some
explained it.
reason, nobody listened to me.
They were actually really mad at you, and I was thinking, I really appreciate Kat putting one out there, sending a flag up for those of us who want to bring our 5-year-old to see the Nutcracker at Christmas. And it was disappointing to say the least that it's going to be shut down. I like you am one of these people who thinks that the name on the outside does not necessarily dictate the art on the inside. And so, yeah,
As the meme goes, there are dozens of us.
yeah, yeah,
Dozens.
dozens, dozens. Yeah, as you can imagine, starting a podcast for dads, I'm part of a select few. Just open to that. But let's talk about your book, which you dedicated to your dad,
Yes, I
How to
did.
Survive in the Woods. Did your dad teach you how to survive in the woods?
My dad taught me how to get lost in the woods and then insist very belligerently that we are not lost. We know
Hmm.
exactly where we are. And,
Hmm.
but he did introduce me also to the pleasures of getting a little bit lost in the woods. And I think that he probably did along the way, along the course of being lost, here and there, impart some skills that would probably be useful to me. I think if push came to shove and I were in the wilderness alone, I could probably make myself a shelter. I could probably start a fire
Hmm.
without matches. I could probably find my way to potable water, and I would know a little bit about what I could eat depending on where I was. Now, this may be because of my dad, but it also might be because I read Hatchet like 17 times
Yeah.
when I was a kid. So, you know.
Yes. What would be your preferred method of starting the fire? Are you a flinter or a sticks rubbed together or something else entirely?
I think I would probably go with the sticks rubbed together. I don't
Mhm.
have flint. I don't carry that around with me.
Yes.
Maybe I should.
You can get keychain flint these days
Oh.
for sale at any camping store. These are the type of things you get from the Dadlit podcast.
I think I may have known that sometime in the course of researching this book and then
Hmm.
forgot it because this is how it works. Writing a novel, you spend a lot of time immersed in the world of the book,
Hmm.
and then you move on to the next one and immediately forget everything that you had to learn in order to write the book.
Yeah, so you did, or you set the book as a domestic thriller in the 100 Mile Wood of northern Maine, which is part of the Appalachian Trail, which, for those who are unfamiliar, is a very sizable stretch of uninterrupted wilderness and the longest stretch of uninterrupted wilderness in the Appalachian Trail. And it happens to be in my home state of Maine.
Oh,
Yeah, and the book is set there. Have you ever done the AT? Did you go up to the 100 Mile Wood or do any Katahdin hiking?
I have hiked Katahdin. I did not make it to the top. I was a teenager at the time. I got
Mhm.
very tired and I got cranky and I wanted to go home.
That's
But
very
I've
similar to me.
I've spent a lot of time in my life in Maine. Both my sets of grandparents had homes there, one
Mhm.
on Deer Isle down near Bar Harbor, and the other in
Ooh.
Piscataquis County, which is where the book is set. So I have spent my entire, all almost 44 years of my life visiting Maine every summer for a period of between 2 weeks and a month. And I really love it there. And I've set all my books there, or rather all my adult books so far. So this is the third to be set in Maine. And I am a big fan of the 100 Mile Wilderness. The camp that I go to, that I stay at each summer, is near Monson, where the origin of the trail is. And I have spent a lot of time doing day hikes on that portion of the trail, little bits of the 100 Mile Wilderness that kind of passes above the lake where the camp is. Now, I don't sleep on the ground. So at this point in my life, I'm a middle-aged woman. I don't do that. Not that I really ever did. I never liked it. So
Mhm.
I do a lot of like it really insanely grueling day hikes that would probably be better off broken up. But if I want to sleep in a bed at the end of the day, I have to do the whole thing at once. So the stretch that is sort of central to the story, which starts at the entrance to the 100 Mile Wilderness near Monson, where there's a sign that tells you that you are on your own for the next 100 miles, that you better have 10 days worth of food because there's not going to be a chance to refuel. It starts there. It continues all the way up to Baxter State Park, to Katahdin. And the stretch that the book takes place on is starts at the Monson entrance and then continues up Barren Mountain to something called Cloud Pond, which is a place where there's a lean-to that I have spent some time at. Not, again, sleeping because I don't sleep on the ground, but just hanging out. And then it kind of meanders off path. And at this point, so too does the narrative and the authenticity of the landscape. I did start
Mhm.
making some stuff up. I don't really know if you were to get lost in the woods in that particular section of the Appalachian Trail, what you would encounter, but you might encounter the things that I mentioned there. I did do a lot of research in the woods in that area to,
Mhm.
to finish the book.
Yeah, what do you think is the sort of mystique of Maine from the position of an author? You say you've been setting your novels in Maine as an adult. I I can empathize. I've recently set one in Maine.
Mhm.
And what's the mystique? What convinces you that Maine's the place to represent in novel form?
Maine is such a great state. It has, I love its culture that is suspicious of anybody who's not from within a 5 mile radius of the place that they're currently standing.
This is true.
Um, I got a little bit of that growing up in upstate New York, but nowhere near as intense. But yeah,
Hmm.
the intense mistrust of outsiders, I enjoy that very much. It makes for high drama if you're into
It
drama, which of
does.
course, as a writer, I am. I also, as a thriller author, one of the things that you're always challenged to do first thing when you're writing a story is figure out some way to part your characters from their devices, either like they lose their phones or the phones don't work. You need them not to have a phone because otherwise they'll just whip it out and ruin the story right before it even gets going. So the
Hmm.
great thing about Maine, and especially about the 100 Mile Wilderness, is it is one of the few places in the country where there is still no cell phone service.
Yeah, until Elon space cellular phones us.
Yeah, yeah, there's going to be a time, and I think it's probably in the pretty near future, where this is going to be an element of my books that really dates them, makes them unbelievable. But at that point, I'm just going to cash it in and start writing sort of historical fiction. I can't deal.
Yeah, this is a thing that's actually come up recently and gets tossed around, which is how difficult it is to write in the era of cell phones and to write stories in the era of cell phones. Do you think there's going to be a time where we're all just going to have to kick it back and write about the 1970s when we do all of our thrillers?
We might. That or the youth will save us. They will return to IRL to meet space. They will put the phones down.
Uh,
They will
let's
stop doing
maybe.
phone. And then real life will be back, and then we can write about the real world again. But yeah,
Mhm.
it is tricky to dramatize a world in which so much communication happens virtually. And I always love it when a writer manages to make that exciting. They can play with the medium to make it interesting, but I don't know. I still prefer real life interactions or, if
Mhm.
needs be, people talking on the phone because then it's still
Yes.
dialogue.
Yeah. The more recently I sat down and I'm working on a project and I decided to set it back when I was in high school because back then phones still had an air of mystery. You could get a call from someone and not know who they were, or a text on your little black Nokia phone. And so I'm completely on board with that. So you would say that, well, let's just say this. You've written a domestic thriller, right?
Yes, except that it's
Yes.
in the wilderness. But
Except that it's in the wilderness.
but the domestic part is really, it's an interpersonal thriller, we might
Yeah,
say.
and
Or
interpersonal.
we might say it's a sex murder wilderness book, which would also be accurate.
I'm trying to think of all the sex murder wilderness books that come to mind. Um, It, I, before we started up, I was thinking about this. I was like, who else has written something, a domestic style thriller that's set in the wilderness? And the one that I came up with is David Mamet's directorial debut, The Edge, with Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins,
Would
which
it
also
surprise you to
features a
learn
barge.
that I
Yeah.
have seen that movie probably 25 times?
It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah,
Yes. So you've seen The Edge and you're
I
familiar.
have. I have. I I won't say that I copied it, but it definitely was present in my mind while I was writing. I do love
Hmm.
I don't want to, should I spoil this movie from 1997? The interplay between these characters who
Hmm.
are, they are reliant upon each other to survive, and they do form this kind of brotherhood, but they're also sexual rivals. And,
Yes.
one of them sort of suspects that the other is sleeping with his wife, but doesn't
Yes.
know for certain, and then kind of does. And it gets a little hairy out there in the wilderness. Two men each
Hmm.
trying to survive to get back to the same woman, but also wants to be the sole survivor to come back to this woman.
Yes. It was Elle McPherson at I
Right?
think the height
Powers?
of her powers,
Yes.
of her feminine powers, and a young and spry Alec Baldwin,
Mm-hmm.
and who Anthony Hopkins must have been in his 60s when that came out too. And it was a very physical. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but there's a very real bear
Bart the bear.
Bart the bear, that Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins go toe to toe with, and a
Mm-hmm.
really spectacular movie.
It's so, so good. We're giving short shrift to the third guy who I can't remember his name. He's the guy from
Harold
Lost.
Perrineau.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, he starts out, he's there too at the start, but then he's not part of the he's not
Someone,
part of the sexual intrigue, so he gotta go.
yeah, he's got to go. He was, a, a vestigial limb in that he was his purpose was to demonstrate the danger of the wilderness.
That's right.
Yes, within Mamet's script. Are you a David Mamet fan as well?
I didn't actually realize that that was his movie, so I guess the answer is
Mhm.
yes, but I was a crypto fan. I was unbeknownst to myself a fan.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I recently had been listening to Mamet's making the rounds because he just wrote another book, and he has some very interesting literary advice that
Mhm.
I've taken to heart, which is that when you form or you conceive your character and give your character a past, ultimately that doesn't matter within the book you're writing because your character is their actions. And I thought that that was a really dynamic note from a writing perspective to always be aware of your character's actions before, like what they do is what makes them who they are. And I always thought that was a really fascinating note. And in a context of screenwriting, I think it's a very valuable one. But I think also valuable in novels.
Yes, I was just thinking about that, how it's, a good way if you were in a visual medium to make sure that you're showing rather than telling. But at the same time, one of the nice things about a novel is that you have access to the interior life of these
Yeah.
characters. And so it's true. Yes, you should see what they're doing, but you have the benefit of sometimes of knowing what they're
Hmm.
doing, maybe knowing better than them why they're doing what they're doing, or
Hmm.
they're trying to shield you from knowing why they're doing what they're doing. It's a fun interplay, which is one of the reasons why I continue to like novels when they're well written,
Hmm.
more than I like movies.
Yeah, who's your favorite novelist publishing right now?
Oh God, publishing right now?
Yes.
Ooh,
We
that
try
is
and stay very contemporary on the Tablet Pod because otherwise
the
it's always Dune.
Of course. So unfortunately, you caught me at a weird time where I have made a resolution to try to read more classic books by men. And so I've
Wow,
been,
really?
yeah, I'm a kind of a born contrarian, I guess. And so
Yeah.
everybody for the past few years has been like, I'm only reading women writers of color. And I'm like, yeah, I'm only reading dead white men. Come at me, bro. And so I just read my first novel by Dickens over the summer.
Hmm.
I tried to get back into Don DeLillo, who I know I'm supposed to like, but I find inscrutable. But
Hmm.
okay, publishing right now, I will plug my good friend who is also, I think, the best satirist working today, Lee Stein, author of Self-Care and more recently, If You're Seeing This, It's Meant for You. Now, these are
Hmm.
not necessarily dad books, but they are good books.
Hmm. And so satirist, lady satirist.
Yes.
Yes, nice. So
Uh,
who's on the, are you jumping on the Lonesome Dove train with everybody else? Or
um,
have you already read Lonesome Dove?
I, if I have, I've forgotten it. I was a
Hmm.
voracious reader in my youth, which means that there's a certain number of books that I read and then forgot that I read. And sometimes I only figure that out after I go and get the book out of the library and then I bring it back and I'm like, wait, this is very familiar. That happened to me with something by Toni Morrison. I can't remember what book it was.
Hmm.
But Lonesome Dove, I don't think I've read that yet. I always get it confused with The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, and I don't know why. Maybe they have similar kind of pulpy covers, possibly.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
should I? Everyone else is, I mean, it's such a
I don't,
trend.
I've never read it. I bought it for my wife because we were discussing it with another lady lit author told me that Lonesome Dove was one that she saw as dad lit and that she'd become quite enamored by. So my wife had just finished The Good Girl's Guide to Murder and wanted a book. And so I directed her to Lonesome Dove. I bought a copy for her. So she's reading it right now, and I'll probably read it when she's done.
Oh, fun.
Hmm.
I will also actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I have actually read more contemporary novels than I was giving myself credit for. Travis Kennedy, The White Python World Tour. excellent book, extremely
Oh.
dad lit, extremely,
Hmm.
extremely dad lit. I gave it to my dad and then watched him open it and start reading it and just start laughing immediately. It's a great, great book.
Hmm.
Let's see, who else is publishing? Tara Isabella Burton is a great writer. She wrote Social Creature and Here in Avalon. I would say not dad lit, so I'm really
Hmm.
kind of I'm mixing it up here. Another good book, Night Swimming by Melly. Oh God, I can't pronounce her name. Melanie Anagnos, I think it is. This is a crime procedural about a detective in industrial New Jersey in the 1970s. Definitely dad lit.
Nice.
Yeah, put on
Yeah,
some Bruce Springsteen and and go to town, dads.
you're all over the place with your reading taste.
Well, I have to read a lot of books to blurb them and also to just kind of get a sense for what's out there. I'm often asked to
Hmm.
review books for my job. So, if there's something I'm interested in, I can just jump on it, which is
Well,
nice.
here's a question because you are a paid cultural commentator. What what are we doing wrong?
Okay. I mean,
Why is nothing good? No, I'm just kidding. No,
do you think nothing is?
I I'll say this. I've been struggling. I ultimately what I'd love to have is for my wife and I to be able to sit down and both watch a show and both enjoy it. So to that extent, we give like a lot of things a shot, right?
Hmm.
Um, but as of late, I feel like the quality of a lot of media, particularly films, has really tanked. I think that the best one I've seen lately was probably what's the one with Rose Byrne about
If I had legs, I'd kick you.
yeah, if I had legs, I'd kick you, or I'd kick you, which I thought was I really liked, but of course I also liked Shiva Baby, which
Oh,
is
I
the
love
same
that
ex
movie.
which is the same, it's the same concept. And I
Hmm.
really loved Shiva Baby. So yeah.
Yeah, I happened across that movie. Actually, no, I think my husband and I did.
Hmm.
Randomly, it came on, and we sat there, and neither one of us would confess to being into it. But then when it was like, "Do you want to turn this off?" and it's like, "No." "Do you want to turn it off?" and he's like, "No." So then we
It's
just watched the entire thing. It's kind of
it's
riveting.
it's basically I would describe it as what being my father's son is like. I would compare it to the experience of many Jewish millennial teens. My favorite part being when they're yelling at her to hurry up, and her friend screams, "We're helping this old lady," and then her mother says, "Why?" And then she said, "Because you're always telling us to." And I just think that's really funny. It really encapsulates the experience of being a Jewish millennial with boomer parents.
That is incredibly funny. I was raised secular and half. I'm
Oh,
only half
okay.
Jewish on my dad's side, so I,
Same with me. Same with me.
yeah, I did not receive like any kind of a cultural upbringing
Hmm.
in the faith. And I was in upstate New York where there were not any Jews at all. So, we just kind of
Hmm.
did our own thing. But that's insightful. I'm now going to maybe go back and rewatch that movie with a new appreciation for the fact that it's like an authentic rendering of a universal
Oh yeah, no,
experience.
that's what it's like to grow up Jewish and to be in that situation, which is really very funny. It's a terrific movie from that perspective. And
Yeah.
if you want another good like fun Jewish family movie that I did really enjoy, is Bad Shabbos. Uh,
Okay. That one I'm
yes,
not familiar with.
it is a Shabbos dinner thriller
Ooh, all
set
right.
in
I'm so in.
and it features Method Man. Method
I
Man makes an appearance.
was it you had my interest, but now you have my attention.
Yes, yes. So That's
So you were asking, why are things bad? And yet, we've just started talking about we've already landed on some movies that are actually pretty watchable. And I think
yeah.
that maybe there's something to that, which is it's true that a lot of what's coming out of the kind of the big studio productions, big tentpole, people got really entrenched in the kind of Marvel Cinematic Universe rut and then kept
Hmm.
investing in it long past the point at which people were really genuinely interested in it. And I say this as somebody who co-wrote a book with Stan Lee, like I'm not immune to the joys of indulging in the same universe over and over again. But what I think is true and interesting is that when you keep going back to that well, you have to find a way to do it almost smaller and more character driven. And I'm thinking now about how some of the Star Wars spin-off series or the recent Game of
Hmm.
Thrones spin-off, Night of Seven Kingdoms. Did you watch that?
Yeah, of course. Yes, that would be an example of something that turned out really,
So
really
good.
excellent. Yes.
And really succeeded where the other one, House of the Dragon, I think has just kind of gotten too sprawling and it's not interesting. There's
Hmm.
too many people and you don't care about any of them. Keeping these stories about two people or three people and who they are to
Hmm.
each other and what they do to each other. I really think that that's like the magic of storytelling, and we got away from it. We got too invested in giant spectacle and CGI fighting, and the world is ending, and the stakes are super high. And I think that it's good to get back to the emotional stakes of what happens between two people. That even if it's just between two people, depending on what happens, it can feel like the end of the world.
Yeah. I kicked it back. We decided to go and seek out like an older series that I thought my wife would really be interested in because she's a
Hmm.
public health professional. So I went back to China Beach, which had
Oh,
4 seasons in the early 90s. And it is a forward operating hospital and relief center on a beach in Vietnam. And so it's a cast predominantly women. The central character or the basically the person you end up mostly following is a nurse for the United States Army. And it's a very, very interesting show that had 4 really good seasons. Plus, it's filled with great late 1960s, early 1970s music.
oh, well, that sounds fantastic.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I just think that it's out there. It feels like it takes that much more work to go in and find some things.
It does, and the algorithm won't supply it to you. The
No.
algorithm will say, well, you liked this thing that was about X, and so here maybe you'll also like this thing that is X adjacent. And
Mm,
this is why I'm not really much of a doomer on AI, because until the algorithm can understand that the thing that I like about Dexter is the same thing I like about Mad Men, is the same thing I like about um, like the Pride and Prejudice miniseries on the BBC.
mhm.
AI is just never going to make it. Like it's just going to keep saying, "You liked Dexter? Here's another show about somebody killing people," and that's just not it.
No, no. Well, if that were the case, it would just direct you to Barry. You just then watch Barry.
Which was
And
okay, but it didn't grab me.
I couldn't get into it. I've thought about this sort of gross point blank style, like why we like certain anti-heroes. And I couldn't get into Barry. I love Dexter, and obviously love Gross Point Blank, which is John Cusack
Hmm.
as a an assassin going to his 10-year high school anniversary with, I believe, Minnie Driver,
Yep.
which is also a great movie. So the that's interesting. So you're not an AI doomer.
Mm-mm.
What do
Not at
you
all.
so what if you were given, let's say, Paramount comes to you, not out of the realm of possibility, given where you work, and says, Kat, where would you put your money in terms of quality programming? Like what is the new wave of interesting television movies? What are you creating or what are you putting out there?
I would find the writers who worked on Mayor of Easttown, The
Nice.
Outsider, um, the current second season of The Pit, which is actually
Hmm.
quite good. I would find the writers who worked on, um, oh, what is something else that I thought was really wonderful? Oh, the Yellowstone standalone miniseries. Um, and I might also see if I could find people who had worked on. Oh, actually, I know who I would approach. I would approach as a showrunner. I'd call it Frank Darabont, who
Yeah. Yeah.
everything he
Always.
touches turns to gold.
And then he leaves it and it dies.
Yes, and then it dies. And I'd say, Frank Darabont, I want you to come and lead this team of writers, and you can do anything you want, and you can cast
Hmm.
anyone you want except John Bernthal, because I don't know why you keep trying to make that happen. It's not happening.
Hmm. That's true. He is trying to push Barenthal on us. The
What does Bernthal have on Frank Darabont, is what I want to know.
it and the irony is Barenthal has now sprouted Grillo, who looks like Barenthal.
God, you're right.
Yes, they're
Oh
just
no,
going to they're going to
they're making
sprout
more of
foreheads
them. Oh, there's going to be so there, give it another few years, they're just going to be an infestation.
of men with pronounced foreheads. The well, that's interesting. So you would go writer first.
I think the writing is the most important thing. And I mean, obviously,
Hmm.
I'm maybe biased when it comes to that, but story is everything.
Hmm. And so you were a fan. If it were me, um, uh, there's a Netflix show called Bloodlines, which featured Coach Taylor and set in the Florida Keys, which I just thought was so spectacular and it was so well done that it was giving me anxiety.
Oh, well, that's promising.
Yes, it's so good. And I would just tell that guy, just do like three of these. Give me three anxiety causing thrillers that are very atmospheric, very, set in like a region so that it can give like a real spirit to the enterprise.
Mhm.
And I would 100% just back that guy in terms of doing reintroducing thrills. And then of course I'd try to find someone in Hollywood that's still funny.
Yes, they're out there.
Hmm.
There's Nervous.
Yeah, who is the funniest person in Hollywood
Oh
right
God.
now?
I would have said Tina Fey, but I don't know if she still is. Um,
Hmm.
that's a good question. I'm not a huge comedy guy, also.
Hmm.
Yeah, I hate to laugh. I'm just kidding. But I don't watch a lot of comedy. I think
Hmm.
actually partly because comedy tends to be episodic, and I really like a story. that I know that a lot of people have mixed feelings about this, but the advent of the TV limited series that is basically like a 10-hour movie, I was so
Hmm.
here for that.
Yes, it's been very effective in creating like quality stories.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that, it's important for if you're doing a drama, you're doing a thriller,
Hmm.
you need to not lost it, you need to know what is going to happen. You need to have the courage to end your story when it's supposed to end.
Hmm.
Um, Comedy can be episodic, and I think it really works very well. So yeah, I mean, Tina Fey is terrific. I'm trying to think what else I could shout to my husband in the other room, be like, babe, what did we used to watch? But that would
Uh,
probably not make for a very good podcast. Who do you think is the best at comedy?
right now, it's the guy that does Eastbound and Down and The Righteous Gemstones. And why can't I remember his name right
Danny
now?
Masterson.
Yeah, Danny Masterson. And it's mostly because he's unfettered and he's in South Carolina and he does whatever he wants and has that sort of like creative control to have fun. I think that's made some of like just really, really hilarious stuff. It's over the top, but over the top at this point, I think, is its own kind of joy. Obviously, Nathan Fielder being the best example of over the top.
I can't bear to watch him. It's too uncomfortable.
It's he's the excess that he goes to delights me. It's just funny.
I know I'm in
It's
the
really
minority.
fun. Yeah.
But something that my husband and I started doing during the pandemic was we started watching comedies from just like the mid 2000s, like the 40-Year-Old
Mhm.
Virgin era of comedy. And God, they were fun and
Yes.
unconcerned, in a way that I think to truly be funny, we probably need to get back to that somehow.
Yes, I would agree with that. The sort of willingness, not for the husband character to be a dummy or
Hmm.
like a child, but to still have an element of irreverence and just sort of a willingness to be themselves, which is, I think, been lost in comedy as of late.
Yeah.
Unless
And
you
it's such a
unless you have
bummer.
Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids is a perfect example of where like women got a chance to do it, to be
Hmm.
sort of irreverent and crazy and have that sort of fun. And I think that worked out really great. Uh,
It did. I mean, I would watch Melissa McCarthy do pretty much anything.
she's very funny.
Yes.
Yeah, incredibly funny. Well, let's get back to talking about your book because we're
Right.
gonna we're selling books.
Oh,
How
God,
to
I hope so.
Survive. God hope so.
Please, I have to eat.
Yes, How to Survive, your sixth novel.
Mhm.
What have you learned now on number six that you put into How to Survive in the Woods?
I have learned the value of using screenwriting,
Ooh.
like plot beat kind of organization, and
Hmm.
to figure out the arc when you're writing thrillers, especially, to make sure that you've got the proper pacing.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean that what I end up with is necessarily cinematic, but what I've always struggled with is like, where does this piece go? And
Hmm.
having something that's basically just like a little roadmap where you understand that you need to like hit that note at this time and bang that drum at that moment. And if you already know what your story is, then that's kind of a load off, which is very nice.
Yeah, so would you sit down with like Save the Cat and that sort of style of like 7 beat story
Yeah, it's
or
I had John Truby's I think it's Art of Story or something like that. I just remember
Mhm.
the man's name. That was recommended to me and I found that very useful in crafting this book because I do have complex interplay between three characters who are all present in pretty much every scene all of the time.
Mhm.
And and that was interesting. That was interesting to play with and to understand how in each scene I needed to be maybe layering in each of their motivations or be thinking about them at least. So that was one thing. The second thing, and I mean I'm basically reminded of this every time I write a book, is to write a book, you have to write the book.
Yeah, that's a
Just
rumor.
got just got to sit down and type the words into the keyboard.
Yep. Is that your key struggle? I personally have been informed that I need to get to the inciting incident faster, and that I struggle with second act escalation. I'm good with third
Interesting.
act escalation, but second act escalation, I have to consciously tell myself that something bad needs to continue to happen to my character, leading up to sort of the final cataclysm. And I think it's because I watch too many westerns.
Oh, is there really such a thing as watching too many Westerns?
Well,
Yeah.
when all your books end up with a standoff.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
yeah.
maybe you could kind of mix it up. Like there's a standoff and then they kiss.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Just surprise them a little.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's finding the time to write because my ideal writing scenario is to have 10 hours of uninterrupted time. And
Wow,
when
that's a
that
good stretch.
happens, I mean, it's beautiful when it happens and the muse shows up. What my husband is laughing at me like he thinks I'm lying. Um, but to have the luxury of just knowing that I don't have to go anywhere and I can just dive into this world and live there for as long as it takes
Hmm.
is a wonderful thing. But it's actually not necessary. You can write a novel in 15-minute increments. It just doesn't
Hmm.
feel as good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've tried to be part of the 5 a.m. writing club personally.
Ooh,
uh, which is
I don't
which
like
is
that
a
hour.
is if I've realized anything from doing the Dad Lit Pod, it's that if you're a dad and you're trying to write a book, you either do the 5 a.m. writing club or you wait until you retire from the military and have plenty of time to write a book. So yeah. So how long does it take you to sit down and complete a book like we want to make sure How to Survive in the Woods?
So I would have started writing that, or no, I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it in 2021.
Hmm.
I finished writing it, my first draft, in, I want to say 2023. And then I spent about a year revising it, and then being on submission. And I'm trying to remember when it sold. It must have been in later 2024. That sounds right to me.
Hmm.
And that was a very strange situation because I wanted to complete the manuscript before I showed it to anyone. And I have at this point, I've had a contract without a book. So I've written to a contract where I just had like a sample chapter and a plot summary. And I wasn't happy with what I produced at the end of that. It was published. It's called You Must Remember This, and some people like it. But every time I think about that book, I think about something that I wish I'd had time to do if I had just been able to hang on to it for another like 3 months. So for this one, I decided that I would just hold on to it, tinker. And in
Hmm.
this case, a lot. I would say probably 75 to 85% of the book is exactly what I thought it was going to be. And then maybe, 25 to 15% of it changed in these final months where I was just tinkering with it and trying to really draw out my main character's motivations and really fill in some of her backstory. Despite what David Mamet might think, her backstory matters quite a lot.
Well, certainly yes, in this book. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
The your main character, your protagonist, is very interesting. When I was reading her, particularly at the beginning of the book, if she reminded me of anybody, and I think I sent this to you in an email, it was the that famous vegan chef who had the fancy vegan lasagna, who let her boyfriend take over her business and bankrupt her on the promise that he would help her dog live forever. I
I
don't know if
mean,
you saw that
I
documentary
I've never
about.
heard of that, but it sounds extremely relatable. There is very little I wouldn't do for somebody who told me that
Yep.
they could help my dog live forever.
That was a Netflix documentary about it was like called Bad Vegan or something. And I was like, having seen that, this character is quite believable. I was like, yeah, I could see someone just like not wanting to deal with. I'm not going to ruin it, but yes, just like wanted to be like, I'm out.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
Yeah.
I've talked to a few people about this, and there
Hmm.
is a consensus. Usually it's women who say this to me, that there is this latent desire amongst high achieving women to just have a place in your life where you can go, you don't have to make decisions. And
Yeah.
I can understand that being enticing, if you were a girl boss, which I am not, but if
Hmm.
you were, I can certainly understand the draw of that. And I think that what's interesting is that you can start with a relatable desire, and make a decision on that basis. But then once you've opened that door, it's very difficult to involve yourself with a person who wants or who is happy to make all the decisions for
Hmm.
you, like because you've asked him to, without him deciding that he wants to maybe make a lot of the decisions you didn't ask him to.
Hmm. Yeah, and that definitely comes through. It's interesting. Domestic thrillers intrigue me. Did you always want to write domestic thrillers, or is this something that you were writing to the market? Because of course they're where the big publication money is right now, with Frida McFadden, Geneva Rose, and others. Was that always something you wanted to do? Was write thrillers and particularly domestic thrillers?
Well, these days the money is either there or it's in writing smut, and I'm not much good at smut. But I mean, I wish I had more control over the genre that I choose to write in. I really don't feel like I get to decide what kind of sticks in my mental filter where I start sort of perseverating on something and thinking, oh, this is the thing, this is
Hmm.
the next thing. And so I, and it's interesting because I do like to read thrillers, but I don't like to read generic thrillers. And I also do
Hmm.
not aim to write generic thrillers. There's nothing wrong with them. I know a lot of people who read them, they'll read like 5 books a week in the same way that people who are really into romantasy will consume, five like 1 cent Kindle Minotaur porn titles per week, and
Hmm.
bless them, I love that for them. But that's just not what I'm trying to do. And so it is interesting to be writing something that codes as kind of unserious and not literary, but be trying to like elevate the form a little bit.
Hmm.
I obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I do think about murder a lot recreationally. And this is a good way to channel that. But the other thing about writing thrillers and dabbling in sometimes crime fiction, which I've also done, is I really love puzzles. I think that
Hmm.
in another life I would have probably been a pretty good detective. And I think it's a lot of fun to construct a story that is basically like a puzzle box with something interesting or frightening at the center, but where the process of undoing the puzzle, like making your way to the center, also has to be interesting and engaging. Like you can't lose people on their way, that they have to enjoy the process. And there's something about that that really, I don't know, I like the building of it.
Hmm. And so, what's the next project on the docket?
So I'm not sure I want to. It's going to be such a long time
You
before
don't
I
you
have a
don't have to
draft.
tell me. Yes,
No,
yes.
it's I can mention it a little bit. I had a very cinematic nightmare about giving birth to some kind of demon baby, and I woke up and
Nice.
was like, "Oh my God, that was horrible." And then I thought, "And is it also something more?" And I decided that it is something more, and so I'm
Hmm.
working on that. I have a pretty good idea, but it's going to take a while to execute it properly. So,
Hmm.
I'll see you in 2030, maybe.
At this point in your career, do you find it's easier to pitch your projects or to go on submission with your projects?
I mean, this one was horrible until it wasn't.
Hmm.
It was, yeah. I mean, that's a it's a lot of inside baseball, and also, not wanting to burn bridges with previous professional acquaintances that I probably shouldn't
Oh,
go into.
so we won't, don't need to spill the tea.
Yeah, it's suffice to say, it never is easy. I've gotten more confident at this point that whatever I
Hmm.
write will find a home somewhere, but I was very, very lucky for this book to find the perfect home for it. And and to work with an editor, Karen Rinaldi, who if I can find somebody who will like take everything that I have in exchange for making Karen Rinaldi live forever and be my editor forever, I will do that. I will do whatever it takes.
Well, that's lovely. Speaks well of her. To that extent, we're reaching the end of the hour. Do you want to plug the book? Tell everyone why they should go out and buy the How to Survive in the Woods.
Absolutely. If you have ever been watching Basic Instinct and thought, God, I love this, but it would be so much better with bears. Or if you've been consuming the life and times of Grizzly Adams and you thought to yourself, I love this, but God, it would be so much better with fucking, then boy, do I have the book for
Yes.
you. Connoisseurs of the Dad Lit Pod. How to Survive in the Woods is Wild Meets the Wife Between Us, a
Mhm.
sexy murder thriller on the most punishing stretch of the Appalachian Trail. Three will enter the woods, fewer than that will leave. And I don't think I'm going to say anything else because I don't believe in
That's very
spoilers.
good. That's very good. Yeah, I tried my best not to spoil anything, which I was very tempted because Surviving in the Woods, terrific, a terrific genre of books, and thinking about that and the Don Fenler story, Lost on a Mountain in Maine,
Mm.
Hatchet, which I believe takes place in Canada, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. Also, The
And
Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon
The
is a
Girl Who
real
Loved Tom Gordon,
kind of
yes.
undersung. That was an inspiration for this book to a certain extent.
Hmm.
The idea that the wilderness is maybe like a slightly haunted place has always been very interesting to me. I just
Hmm.
realized, by the way, Dan, that I said the F word on your podcast, and I really apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. You can
So
say
you can
fuck
bleep
on
it
this
out.
podcast.
It's so late in the game that, nobody I think who's listened this far is going to be upset about it. But
Yeah, no, I tick the little explicit, we're all adults listening to the Dad Lit Pod.
I certainly hope
If
so. If you're a
if
dad, you should be an
Yes.
adult.
Yeah, one would hope. So anyway, well, I want to thank you for coming on. And I have read How to Survive in the Woods, and it is all the things Kat describes and more. Plus elements of vegan chef whose husband takes over her business.
A little bit of that too.
A little bit of that too. Well, thank you, Kat. This has been the Dad Lit Pod with Dan Roberts, joined by Kat Rosenfield. Thank you again for tuning in.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dad Lit Pod.